Just quick question. Have you had your coffee this morning? White, black, cappuccino, cafe mocha, depending on what your taste and preference is. If you haven't had your coffee this morning, well, there's a reason why you need to have your coffee this morning. Why? It's because we want to look at the challenges facing the coffee industry, given that coffee was once the main income earner, export income earner for Kenya, but now it is ranked 5th. And given that Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven economy, what is failing? What are we doing right? And what are we doing wrong? So especially we're going to be focusing on the challenges that are befalling the coffee industry to try and put this into perspective and see what government or other stakeholders and farmers together are doing to return it to profitability. This morning, I'm joined by Nancy Cheruiyot, who is a managing trustee, a Commodities fund, and flanked by Samuel Nyaga, who is a coffee farmer from Embu. Karibu sana. I'm not too sure if you've had a coffee. I can see Nancy has carried her coffee right at the studio. Have you had your coffee?
I'll have it after this.
You'll have it
after this session.
You'll have it after this.
Come all the way from Embu. I've had no time to.
Karibu, Nairobi County.
Asante. And there'll be good coffee in Nairobi.
There'll be good coffee. Definitely, there's always good coffee. Now, the status of the local coffee industry. Let's start with you, Nancy, from where you sit. What is the status of the current local coffee industry?
Thank you, Regina. Actually, when you look at the coffee industry now, we cannot say it's the same as what we had 30 years ago. Over 30 years ago, in the 80s and early 90s, Kenya was producing over 130,000 metric tons. Currently, we are doing barely 41 to 45. On a good year, we do 46,000 metric tons. So currently, we are producing much, much lower than what we did 25 to 30 years ago. But again, when you look at the last 10 years, there have been a lot of interventions to see how we can return to where we were in the 80s.
Now, before we talk about the interventions, I can see Nyaga is nodding and agreeing that the production has gone down. We cannot compare where we are 30 years to now. Our coffee production has gone down. From a farmer's point of view, why do you think coffee production has dwindled?
One thing the farmer misses is support. Even when he has a lot of stamina to move on with coffee farming, he wants to do farming. But when he looks around himself, it's like he's alone in policy, in agricultural extension services. He is left to guesswork. So information.
Okay.
Inputs are expensive. And particularly now there is tax on top. So they have become very expensive. So the farmer wonders, do I continue? Do I stop? But the farmer is there. All what he needs is just an injection of a push so that he can move on. He has not lost hope. He is still on it. You know, he is still on it. But he is waiting now for somebody to come and pick him.
Now, let's talk about the interventions that have been done over the last couple of years. Nancy, you're about to highlight what has been done to bring us back to profitability. And before you answer that, we'd also want to look, he's already said that the farmer has not lost hope. They just need support. So what support should coffee farmers be looking out for as far as government is concerned?
Thank you, Regina. Actually, when you look at, even before the task force, the government in the year 2006 set up a fund, which was then called the Coffee Development Fund. And the mandate of Coffee Development Fund was to offer accessible and subsidized credit to specifically coffee farmers. And why was such a fund formed when we had AFC and we had the banks? It's because the unique state of coffee farming as opposed to other crops. When you see coffee, when you plant a seedling, even the seedling itself, it takes 12 months, 10 to 12 months before the seedling is ready. Then you've got to put it down and wait for 18 months before you can have the first harvest. Now, no bank was patient enough to wait for that before the farmer can make repayment. And so the government saw the gap. Farmers, these coffee farmers were not accessing credit either from government development banks specifically or the commercial banks because of the way the coffee growing cycle is. It's very long, and for banks The longer, the higher the risk. So this fund was set up, and it was to give subsidized credit. And when you look at the fund, it was giving between 2.5% to 10%. You're not supposed to give more than 10%. So that is one key way of supporting the farmers, as the farmer here has said. They were lacking support. Another thing the farmer he has highlighted is actually the extension services. I don't know if you remember when we were young, we used to have extension officers with their bikes coming up to our farms. I don't think it's the case anymore. And with the promulgation of the Constitution, agriculture went to counties, the function. And I think the counties have been, I think they are yet to get there. They are yet to get to the extension bit of support to farmers. And now the government 3 years ago set up the Coffee Task Force because the problems were getting more and more. We had now the issue of lack of extension. We had farmers age growing old. Farmers were growing old. The young generation didn't want to take up coffee. And as soon as the father shared the farm for them, they uprooted the coffee and did something else. Why? Because they was not seeing, you know, the prospects. Yeah, the returns were very low. And when you look at why returns were very low again, it goes around good agricultural practices, which was not there because nobody was doing extension. Access to market was one. The current way the coffee was marketed, it's a long value chain. And that is one of the key recommendations in the task force report, that this value chain, coffee value chain, be re-evaluated and the regulations be re-evaluated. And that is actually about to be gazetted, new regulations that are pro-farmer, that supports the marketing of the farmer's coffee, because the way it is now, the value chain is very long. There are so many players, Regina. When you look at from the time the farmer delivers cherry to when the coffee is sold, oh, there are so many players in the middle. And when the money comes, all those players do a deduction, you know.
Now let's talk about the issue. You've mentioned the issue of, there's a Coffee Development Fund.
Yes.
That I don't know if it's still in existence.
Yeah.
Then there's the issue of the current status in terms of debt. Currently, the task force report that you mentioned has said that the coffee industry owes 4.7 billion shillings.
Yeah, indebted.
Indebted, 4.7 billion shillings. How is this affecting the industry? Maybe Nyaga can start from there. How is this affecting coffee production?
One thing, the farmer feels loaded. Like I said, he's resilient. He wants to move. He has not lost hope. But the debt burden is too huge. And it can easily demoralize farmers because societies will not get inputs because they are loaded already. They are in debt. The farmer cannot buy directly from the agro shop because he's already loaded also. So you see, it's pulling the farmer down. And it is the farmer who wants to come up.
Now, from a government point of view, Nancy, do you see a way out? Government has built up the industry in the recent years, maybe 2 years back, but we still see the industry has not come out of debt yet. We still have 4.7 billion shillings that the local coffee industry has in terms of debt, and this is affecting coffee production, as Samuel Nyaga here has said. You cannot buy products because you're already indebted. You cannot buy fertilizer. You cannot pay for services, normal services, especially when it comes to production, planting, harvesting, and that. Are you seeing the government looking at another bailout for the coffee industry, or what is the way out of debt for the local coffee industry?
Really, when just before I tackled the way out, you asked whether Coffee Development Fund is still there. Yes, it is there under a new name. It's the Commodities Fund.
Yes.
And in 2014, there were agriculture reforms, and agriculture thought they would put together several funds which were there to form Commodities Fund, and that is where Coffee Development Fund went. Yes. So it is still there. Yeah, so when you look at the indebtedness, yes, the government did bail out, and it was also from the recommendation of the task force. And what the government bailed out farmers from was the loan which was taken very long time ago, I think in the 90s. And up to late 90s, really. Now the debt which is outstanding is what the societies have put themselves into with several other financial institutions. And the government is working very hard through the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade, because that's where the societies sit. The societies sit there, the Cofee sit at agriculture, so we've got to work together to audit, and they have now, I think they are auditing the societies to see which are really these loans. You will find out after the audit that part of it was misappropriated by the officials of the societies. So it shouldn't really be a loan. Those people should be made to pay whatever they misappropriated. We also have situations where it is purely lack of financial management. And after this audit, the government will now commence on serious capacity building on financial management. And as I talk here, I can assure you that at the moment there's a program that the Ministry of Agriculture is developing, a very robust program that will see that farmers are capacity built, not just in good agricultural practices, but also in financial management. And we are looking at a way that we will capacity build farmers so that whoever they choose as their officials, because that is where the problem starts, people of integrity and people who can be taken accountable. From a financial point of view, as a financial commodities fund, we have also put our own measures. We are registered with CRB, and CRB will allow us, before a society come, because they normally come to us as the last resort. They have gone everywhere, they have borrowed everywhere they can go, so they know in their serikali, so they come. And before we registered with CRB, we will know that they have already taken loans everywhere. But now with CRB, I'll be able to tell this society, hey, no, but you are indebted to Cooperative. How will you pay Cooperative and pay me? You are indebted to microfinance. So those are the measures we are trying to see to manage the indebtedness. But again, as you said, really, the government did bailout. But that is not sustainable. The government cannot keep bailing and bailing out. Now we are at the time when the government is auditing. We want to know why did you take that loan? Who signed that loan? And what was it for? So that farmers now know they have to take responsibility as well. And when they are called for that AGM, before they give authority to borrow, because the authority to borrow comes from the farmers, they need to ask the pertinent questions. Why are we borrowing? What are we borrowing for? And how much it is. And then the last key on that, the government has now embarked also on farmer registration. And we want to know, who is this farmer? How old is he? What gender is he? How many coffee bushes does he have? And even which variety. And you might ask why specific details like that? Because again, when you go to traditional coffee growing regions, like around the Mount Kenya region, the Embu.
Embu, where he comes from.
Embu, where he comes from, for instance, Nyeri, Meru, you find people who, like him, he could have inherited from his father the same coffee trees. Now we don't expect magic from that tree. Really, it has produced all it could. In fact, what is left, it is actually trying. We are trying to get that information so that we will know how much we need to replace those coffee trees. And now the government is really trying to, they are going to give capacity to coffee research to produce a lot of coffee seedlings in the coming 3 years, actually, which will be directly given to farmers, very subsidizedly, or even at some cases for free. The government is taking up to replace the old coffee trees. Yeah,
to increase production.
Yeah, so if that is done, even if the farm is small, because the average now is less than 3 kilos per tree.
Yes.
If you have 100 trees, that is 300 kilos of cherry. But we know a coffee tree, the current variety, Batia and True 11, there's a potential to produce 40. Let us say they don't get there, they just do 10. So it will be from 300 to 3,000. So you see the change without even expanding the acreage under coffee. Another thing also now, we have seen that Kiambu County really is still the leading coffee producer in the country, despite the fact that we are really converting huge chunks into real estate.
Now, when you talk about acreage, there's actually part of the report is said that acreage under coffee is dwindling, where farmers are opting for other cash crops, especially now avocado and macadamia, that already have an export market, a ready market in Asia and in America. Now, from a farmer point of view, Nyaga, so much has been said, so many interventions are out there by the stakeholders, and rather mainly government trying to intervene and bring the coffee industry back to profitability. there's a question, you've already said a lack of support in as far as extension services are concerned. But now here's a proposal that you first of all get registered. Then on the issue of mismanagement of your society, first of all, are you a member of a society or a cooperative? Are you?
I'm a member of a group. I left the cooperative movement because I saw mismanagement. So I decided to move out. I have my own processing unit, and we have come up as a team.
When we use the issue of mismanagement, we use it blanketly.
Yes.
But we need to put this into perspective because we know there's a regulator out there. So from a farmer point of view, the reason why you moved from the cooperative, you've cited mismanagement. Maybe you can elaborate what form of mismanagement that you saw there that led you to move to a group, and what have been your experiences in this group, and what would you want to be done, especially in as far as the coffee cooperatives are concerned, so that fellow coffee farmers can earn as they used to earn 30 years back.
Problem number one that I saw, and that still lives on, is first of all the elections bit. That's the basis. When elections are done, you find, there is either favor or some ways of mismanaging the whole process, so that it is who is known where owns the chairs or becomes a member of the management committee. So the whole problem starts around there.
The election process, lack of transparency and accountability. The other problem is those who are elected, you may find they could be literate, but to what extent? Illiteracy.
In terms of management.
Lack of capacity.
Lack of capacity. If you say you are going to take them for training, fine. Will they catch the training? Will that training get into them?
Then
so that they can utilize it in managing the society. That's problem number two. Problem number three, the farmer, like I said before, the elected team is like the farmer will wait for you when you bring that cherry. We utilize our 2% or 20% automatically, whether the coffee has given enough income or not.
Undercutting. Basically, now this brings some of the findings of the task force is the issue of cartels, pricing cartels. He's already said it, that you'll get a certain commission for this and this and that.
Yes.
Then also that brings in the issue of coffee theft.
Yes.
So when we hear coffee theft, maybe you can explain what coffee theft means from a farmer point of view, being a former member of a cooperative, and also now as a group. Coffee theft, then we talk about the issue of pricing, coffee pricing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, coffee theft in the first place is, let's say, it is not the farmer willing to sell to a broker. He is forced to, again because of the debt.
Okay.
He can't get money anywhere.
He's running away from the deductions from the cooperative.
Here he has his 1 acre, 540 trees, bearing very well. He has to pick that coffee. The society will not give the money. So here, the buyer, the broker comes in and says, it's so much for 1 kilo. So theft starts from the debt load. You must see where then. So the farmer is forced to sell. So stealing starts from there.
From the farmer himself.
From the farmer himself. But he has no alternative. Because you not sell his cow, you not get money from the bank, you not get money from the cooperative society. So he's left only to get the pig, use its own fat or oil to boil itself. Yeah, like we always say. So the farmer is actually left, is forced to get into that stage. So stealing is there. And of course, there are those people who just want to buy the cherry and make more money on the other end. So it all starts from the farmer being unable to meet the requirements of the farming.
Now, on regulation, Nancy, the coffee farmer has two options. Either you sell directly, or you go through the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. And now we're seeing the presence of middlemen along the value chain that are taking advantage of this indebted coffee farmer. So what do we do? You know, these are two options. Are this something that we need to explore in as far as regulation is concerned? And then how will this in turn affect the earnings, the coffee farmer earnings?
Okay, thank you for that. First, yeah, as you put it right, there are two windows of marketing. There's the direct window where the cooperative society can make direct contracts with the buyers from overseas. And also we have where you have to sell through the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. And maybe I can start with Nairobi Coffee Exchange, how to go about it. The cooperative, after they process the coffee, the cherry into parchment, it becomes parchment first. Then they have to take it to the miller to make it clean coffee. And now they have to contract a marketer. Under the regulations, there is a person called marketer who is licensed to market coffee on behalf of others. This is the marketer now will go to Nairobi Coffee Exchange on behalf of the cooperative that contracted them. And the prices are bid, and now, you know, depending on the price they agreed with the farmer, you know, there is a reserve price. If it doesn't go beyond this, don't sell or that. The challenge, however, with this is that under the current regulations, which they are about, you know, to be revised once the new ones are gazetted, is that we have very few marketers in the country, because for you to get a license of marketing, it is very expensive under the current regulation. You need to put a bond of $1 million. Now tell me how many cooperatives can afford that. So we find like we have around 10 or 14 marketers, but not even all of them participate in the coffee exchange at one time. So maybe at one time you find 7, 8 when you go to Nairobi Coffee Exchange, just bidding. And now the problem...
And they form the cartel.
Yeah, and the problem with that is they are few. They are able to talk amongst themselves. Yes. I'm not saying that's what they do, but there's a likelihood. There is a likelihood that they can.
The farmer said there's a likelihood.
Yeah. The farmer says farmer is king.
Yes,
yeah. And that is why now the government, now brought in the second window of direct sales. The challenge also with the direct sales, under the old regulations, the current ones, which we are about to review, is that you still need that market. Because for one, farmer still lacks capacity to make contracts with big buyers outside. And therefore, they still depend on the same marketing agent. The government went further and even provided under the regulations on farmer marketing license. Fine, we give you as a grower, they call it grower. If you're a grower, cooperatives get that. You know, big farmer like him, if he can get that. But what is the capacity? How can he access? And this brings us to why even we are having this 124th session of International Coffee Organization in Kenya. Because this is where all buyers and all sellers meet. And we are having on the first and second day a symposium where all farmers are there. Because they need to ask these questions. They need to know how to access this market, how to, make these contracts. And even the government is putting up also, as I talked about, capacity building. We need to capacity build these farmers. And we also need to tell the farmers, like my friend here, it reaches a certain age. Let the young do it. We have our young people who have done IT, very young graduates. We can let them run our coffee businesses.
But the question is, but are they willing to get into farming?
We are not taking the young people to go to farming. We are taking them to do the other services along farming. Let him farm, but let him employ that young person to run the society as a manager, to make the contracts, to make the sales, to go out there when we go to African Fine Coffee's exhibition, like we had one in Rwanda, and one is coming to Nairobi next year, by the way. But really, Mzee cannot do everything. He cannot farm, times have changed. There are people who can, tell you there's a market right now.
Nyaga, times have changed.
Yeah.
So times have changed. And we need to change with that
with times, yeah.
It is, I would say the current farmer, like myself, should make coffee farming
a business. Yeah.
Make it a business.
Yeah.
Employ people who can actually carry on. Let your son come in
As a business executive.
as a business executive so that he can even draw graphs. When I deliver, when I pick 1,000 kilos or 2,000 kilos today, some more the other day, some more the other week, they let him do it, see the fun of growing from 1,000 kilos to 10,000 kilos through a graph on a computer, on a phone.
Yeah.
Let him also see how dad is behaving on the farm practically, so that he can synchronize that computer business, that IT business, that internet business with the practical biz. Yeah? Because right now we are getting to a certain level, particularly in our group, whereby we take GPS, GPS figures, so that if your son or a young man is in Britain, he can actually
Market your coffee for you.
You can market your coffee and even beam your shamba, your farm, tell him, this is my shamba. This is where dad is. You can see him. Go there, you see, he is at the 7 degrees east of Greenwich, 03 degrees south of the equator, and that's it. And they will enjoy doing that.
Integration.
Yeah. Integration of IT
into coffee farming.
Into coffee farming. And it is easy to do it. But you have to do this with the youth. Yeah. Because they have more knowledge. Yeah. They can't do it without the old. Because it is the old also. Yeah. Who has the information and the practical work.
And the expertise.
Yeah. And the expertise.
And if I may add, really, these youth, they are able to mine even research from all over the world. I know coffee research does a lot of research, but really how much gets in the farmer is another question. Why? Because we still use the old methods. We are waiting for them to come and sit us in a coffee field school. Whereas if we had these youth working for us in our societies, they would be able to mine that from the internet. Go to the website of coffee research and say, oh, there's a new finding on how we need to cultivate coffee. That is one part. Yes. These people also, we can employ them as our marketers. As a cooperative society, why don't we let these young people go and look for markets? And another thing, before we forget, Regina, Kenya, we don't really drink coffee.
Now that I was coming to that, actually you preempted me. The theme of the 124th session of the International Organization Council, that is happening on the 25th to 29th at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. The theme this year is promoting sustainable quality coffee production for specialty and consumption for increased income. Yeah. Yes. Are we consuming coffee? We always make this statement, let me take you out for coffee. But how many of us take coffee? We might not even take tea. We will take any other thing, any other beverage, rather than coffee. So what are we doing from our end? What are we? Okay, let's start from the farmer. What are you doing on your end to increase consumption of coffee? If we're not going to do it for export, why don't we buy Kenya, build Kenya? Why aren't we consuming coffee?
I would say what we should be doing. One, long time ago, I'll call it long time ago, maybe 30, 40 years ago, you will find farmers, coffee farmers then. That time I was not a farmer. I was working in the government. You find a farmer picking a few cherries, you dry them. Into mbuni. They'll be ground with using the grinding stone. After grinding them, you winnow them so that you get the green bean. Then you roast that with a sufuria, or there is a clay pot. If it is cut into two, it's a very good roaster. It's a very good roaster. And at that time, people would take coffee. But now, things have changed.
Coffee was a lifestyle 30 years ago. That's what you said.
It was a lifestyle. People would take coffee and they would be okay. But now, we need to change with that time. What do I mean by that? We value add that final drink, that final powder, or granules, when it is ground. Value add to the taste of people. Ladies may like a certain aroma of coffee. Put some aroma there. Men may like pili-pili in coffee. Put a bit of it, with it to increase appetite. Yeah? People may like garlic in that coffee. Put it there. People you take. So for me, what we should be doing now, at the farmer level, encourage, local value addition. As low as the farm level. Come to youth groups, show them how to do that, or value add to them, give it to them, let them make coffee and sell it out to people in the shops. Not even in the shops, matatu centers. They will sell that coffee, and that is consumption, from the home to the youth groups, to the women groups, to the men groups, then to the hotels. Consumption will increase.
Okay.
You just need something very small to increase. If I take a spoon, a spoon.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
maybe if I may add, Regina, one of the impediments of coffee consumption really also emanated from the regulations. I'm sorry to say. That is why these regulations have to go as soon as possible. The key was you could not access this farmer. The reason why they were getting the cherries was actually that was even illegal. According to regulations, all of it has to go to coffee exchange. Imagine you cannot consume your own product. It's got to go to Nairobi Coffee Exchange. Then you go now buy, and at certain, at certain amounts. But who can afford to buy those big bulk? From Coffee Exchange. So now these same marketers, people with means would buy on behalf and then come and sell back to us. And by the time it gets back to us, it's really pretty much expensive. And remember, it was your coffee. There was no way where me, as Nancy, I love coffee so much. I live on coffee. I sometimes forget to eat. I take coffee continuously. I could not get my 5 kilograms. I cannot. I've got to go to either to go to buy in Dormans or Java, those ones, or in the supermarket. The new regulations want to heal that, where I can buy, if I had a small coffee shop, I just probably want 10 kilos in a week to sell that without having to pass through other people who have done that. We need to create a way where I'm coming from Kericho, I don't have to come all the way to Nairobi Coffee Exchange to buy the 10 bags. Why can't I go directly to a cooperative, Kapkiyai in Kericho, and buy my 10 bags there? So that is what we want to do. So that he can sell to that young man he wants to sell at the bus stage. He can go to his farm and buy just 5 kilos for that week, and it grounds. The second thing we are looking as government is also to ensure that we make this coffee machinery affordable. That is one thing again. Of course, over the 10 years, you've seen, if it's amazing. You go every town now, there's a coffee shop. They might not be doing the perfect cup of coffee, but there's a coffee shop. And we keep teaching people latte is this one, cappuccino is this one, and it's amazing. When 10 years ago, we didn't have even a single one in Nakuru. Right now, even where the matatu stop when they are carrying people, there's a coffee shop, and it's amazing. It's showing that there's a growing class of coffee consumers. However, that is the middle class, the young people and the middle class. How do we make the others, the farmers on the ground? We need to break that regulation and allow farmers to roast their own coffee and consume at homes without doing it illegally.
Easy access and affordability of coffee.
And
the new regulations.
The new regulations.
Come with the new regulations.
Yeah. Because when you look at tea, Regina, I come from Kericho. It's a tea area. You find every stop there is a tea shop. Just there. And even now, when I need a packet of coffee, I tell people coming to get it from me because it's so easy to access. But you don't do that with coffee. There is a lot of regulations involved and a lot of license this, license that. And I don't blame also the regulation. There is the theft. So if I steal, I need the license to show why I'm carrying this. So if I'm not a farmer, then I cannot get the license. So we'll be able to get a thief here and there. So there are a lot of things we are looking at the moment. We are not saying the new regulations will be 100% perfect. It's a learning. Of course, as any other law, it will come, then we'll realize a new loophole. But now the current one is addressed by the by the
Yes.
Coffee Task Force has really tried to bring out those issues that we can deal with. Number one that we are looking at now is how do we make coffee machinery affordable? And the government is thinking around, should we, the taxation, and also our own industries here, the Kirdi. Can they fabricate for us? We don't have to have the mark of Italian coffee machine. Just make something for me that can roast for me at home. Yeah.
So that we can do the
roast
value
it,
chain.
like
Yeah?
what they were doing with the stone. Can we mechanize further than that? Can we have something that over the Jico, and I saw one in Brazil. You just, as you talk with your villager, your neighbor, you are roasting and you are standing the coffee and roasting over the Jico. Then you grind there, use the normal grinder, and you have your cup of coffee.
Now, you've said these regulations, you've said they may not be 100% the solution that we need to revive the coffee industry, but they're going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So what are the timelines? What are we looking at about gazettement? What are the timelines? And just before we get there, we want to highlight key essential reforms that these new regulations are going to be in place. You've already said about the issue of accessibility and affordability of, coffee and nationwide. What are the key elements are contained in the new regulations?
One key one.
What we expect here.
One key one I see, and that has assisted in now releasing coffee to the market and to people. Crops Act 2019.
2013,
now,
yeah.
2013, Crops Act 2013 and the coffee rules 2019. And I wish it was gazetted as soon as possible. Together with together with the whole document of the task force, because it has a lot of good things. One thing which has happened is to recognize the farmer as the owner
of the coffee.
Of the coffee. To me, that is key. Because before that, in 70s, in 80s, and late 90s, coffee was governed by CAB 333, which said coffee belongs to the government. If you don't weed it, if you don't remove kochi grass, if you don't spread, you go to jail. Personally, I took one to jail when I was an agricultural officer. Because he refused. He refused to remove kochi grass. Because this was government coffee. Yeah?
Government property.
Yeah.
Government property, owned by Kenya government. But now, the rules have eased that, which I think is a good thing. Is one of the key areas. Yeah, recognizing the farmer as the owner of coffee. Of course, it's still governed by other rules, so that it does not also go too loose.
Yeah.
Because if you leave too loose, now there will be chaos.
Yeah, and to add on that, another key aspect of this proposed regulation really is the idea of knowing our farmer, not just recognizing.
Yes.
And now, when you look at one of the reasons why even we were not drinking coffee, the coffee belonged to government and it had to be exported, really. And you were found roasting government's coffee, you know. So that is why people actually, it's very hard to change the culture that coffee is for export. Yeah, so one thing there, we are putting in regulations that farmers have to be registered voluntarily from the cooperative. So that if I plant 100 more coffee bushes this year, it is recorded. I go and tell my society I've added 100 more coffee trees. If I uproot, which you are allowable, it's your coffee, also report to us that this year my son got married and he needed a place to build a house. So I uprooted 200 trees so that he can. So that is one thing also, because what the problem we have had now is not knowing really who is this farmer. How much coffee really is he producing? And even the interventions where the government has put in subsidized fertilizer, sometimes it doesn't get to the actual farmer. Because we have amorphous farmers. We don't know who they are, and then we have cartels cropping up and taking and selling back to the same farmers. So that is another one. The very other key one, as I said, apart from now making it accessible, coffee accessible to everyday home like we access tea, is also the issue of coffee payments. You realize that at the moment, for a farmer, once he delivers cherries, he can wait for anything between 4 and 8 months before he can get paid. Now, he has no control. It went to the cooperative, then it was processed, then it went to the miller. Then the miller now took them to, it's in the warehouse, then the miller sold. Now when the miller sells, sometimes they are not very, not the miller, the marketer. They don't remit the funds immediately. According to the current regulations, they are supposed to do it within a week, but do they do it? No. Why? Now they trade with the money. You know, it's paid in dollars. And I have 20 societies I'm selling for. You can imagine the amount of dollars coming. So if I can play one more extra week or two, I can trade with that money. And I know there are marketers who are doing a good job. I'm not saying all of them. But they are also rogue ones. And they will not like what I'm saying. They trade with farmers' money. And they give farmers money in piecemeal, which is not really helping. And now they influence the society officials and they work together in cahoots. And the farmer is suffering. And now what this new regulation has done is said, no, all money from sale of coffee will go to one account. When it goes to that one account, me as Nancy from Commodities Fund, I'll say, I gave Kahoya, FCS, 10 million. So it is dispersed from that account. Marketer says, my marketing, which is also spelled out, the rate of marketing fee is this much. For this kilo, it will be paid. Everybody will be paid at the same time. The marketer, the farmer, and the financier. And what will that also heal? Right now, there are rogue marketers who give very expensive loans to cooperative societies. You know when the societies are desperate, they say, come tomorrow, we'll give you. You want 20 million? Here you are. No paperwork, you know, the farmer don't want to come through us because we ask for, give us this, give us that, which is due diligence. Paperwork, yeah, and also understanding how indebted you are before we give you. So they cut a shortcut, as he said, indebtedness. So they go get from marketer 20 million. Now, when they are paid, the marketer tells them, by the way, the dollar ilikuwa mbaya, so you're only getting 1 million. So now they are back to square one. Now these officials are thinking, 1 million, farmers will kill us. So they take another loan from that marketer.
To top up.
To top up, to go and declare very high rate of payouts, which is not in the actual sense. Because if they don't do that, farmers will run away to the other society next time. So there are a lot of issues. Now with these new regulations, if all the money is paid from one account, and a marketer says, I gave them 10 million, they will be told, you gave them as who? You are not a financial institution. Who regulates you? So it will avoid that. And we'll now be able, if farmers really need a loan, even me as a Commodities Fund, the issue of asking them for land or security will not arise. Yeah, will not arise. So everybody will access our loans because security in your account. I know the coffee will be sold and I'll get my money. Okay. So it will make accessing loans from Commodities Fund and any other financial institution very easy, which is a very big challenge, especially to women and youth in coffee at the moment. Because they don't have land. Yeah, they don't have security. So when they come to us, we can't give them loans.
Transparency and accountability in the new regulations.
You know when they do that, the farmer continuously gets very low payouts. You find a farmer getting 23 shillings per kilo cherry, 24 shillings, 30 shillings. And it is very well known that the production of 1 kilo cherry is between 35 and 40 shillings. So when you give a farmer 33 or...
It's a loss.
That is loss. To me, I would call it blasphemy. Because the good Bible, the Holy Book, says, you will eat from your sweat.
And also give what's to Caesar what is to Caesar.
But what do you give to Caesar?
And we need to...
You are already getting, you are not even breaking even.
And when you look at really, when we say, I know farmers say, oh, the prices are bad. The prices are not bad, Regina. You go to Nairobi Coffee Exchange. We are selling coffee at $2, at least $2 per kilo, or most of the time $3. The problem is this long value chain. Who is taking what out of it? That is where the problem is. And when there is a lot of interest in coffee in new emerging areas, the west of Rift, the North Rift, the Eldoret, the Uasin-Gishu County, the Trans Nzoia. There's a lot of farmers coming into coffee. And when they come and ask me, Nancy, why are you telling us to grow coffee and the prices are bad? I tell them, no, it's not the prices bad. And he will tell you, when he became an estate farmer, he doesn't complain anymore about the price. Why? Because he's in control of his coffee. Yes. So now what this new regulation also is doing is to allow people, instead of forcing me until I get 5 acres, to be in a society, which most of the time I don't want, because probably the chairman is this and that, or the officials. Or I'm young, you know, if I'm a youth of 25 and I have my 1 acre, I don't want the shenanigans of the old people in the society.
Sitting in the AGM and looking like a toddler among grown-ups.
You see, so what the new regulation has done, I say, no, you don't have to have 5 acres for you to get a license to do your own pulping. What we are saying now, we are saying, so long as you can produce 2,000 kilos. And 2,000 kilos, if you do 10 kilos per tree, in the new variety, you only need 2 acres.
Now, let's talk about the quality of production. Nyaga, you will answer that. The quality of production, this is part of the theme.
Yes.
Quality of production. How does our coffee, in this point, I know there are new varieties out there. You've said there's a
Batian and Ruiru 11.
And Ruiru 11. High yielding. How do we compare within the region? You know, Kenya, we like comparing what is happening in Uganda, you know, Robusta and Arabica. It has been over the years, but now, hey, it is already 50 years down the line. What other varieties are out there? What are the advantages of the new varieties? And how can farmers actually access these seedlings? Are they available? Are they affordable?
Can I, as I comment on that, I want to go back to Cheruiyot and agree on one point, and disagree on another.
It's okay. We are here to agree that you can disagree.
I agree on the length of the value chain.
And the deductions along the value chain.
There's too many deductions. Sometimes some of them are uncalled for. I agree. But when we come to the pricing at the auction, I don't know what happens. Maybe cartel work in quotes. Because you find, like, I think it's 022, last Tuesday but one, they were terribly low. Because when you get coffee, class AA, AB, going at 93, 100, $120 per 50 kilo bag or 60 kilo bag.
That was terrible.
You can't, because that, you look at it, you see, you can't, you don't know whether, no, I don't know whether they pray when they start. Because when you get a farmer getting paid, like in that sale, getting paid 23, 27 shillings, and it was bought in a corporate, a government institution, and they allowed that coffee to go, I think that's the point of departure, whereby somebody says, leave my coffee alone. Nirudishia, come bring it back to me. I can give it maybe to a charitable organization. Because 24, 27, 30, even 40 shillings does not even meet the costs
Of production.
of production. What now encourages me to go back to coffee again. I better cut it. But when I cut, where else do I go? Avocados, fine. But for 3 years, I have to wait. Macadamia, for another 3 years, I have to wait. Maybe the 3 years, we will have had the coffee come back. So the pricing at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, somebody needs to get in. Somebody definitely needs to get in. Because there is always a minimum that the farmer must get to move on.
What is your take, Nancy?
Yeah,
what is your response to
That's
the farmer says that
but I think we need to have it.
the farmer said something needs
yeah.
to be done at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange.
And I want to, I agree with him. Just to put the record straight, I'm also a farmer, so I'm both. And when you look at Nairobi Coffee Exchange, as I said earlier, it is played up by very few players. And now the government is in the process of setting up commodity exchange. What will that commodity exchange do? It will now not be just coffee. It will be, of course, other commodities.
Other crops.
But the major difference is these now farmers will be able to trade their coffee worldwide.
Yes.
Because it will be online. So it will be not just the 7. Somebody from New York can look at your coffee and say, I want to So the bidding will be online. And that is where I still say we need to bring our youth back to help us with this, because then you can trade your coffee at home. You can sit and say, no, don't sell this. And that is one thing. Number two, in terms of prices, I want also the farmers to understand it's not just coffee. Always there's a fluctuation. In coffee, there's a season where the prices are so high. There's a season where the prices are so low. And I like the government for bringing out the issue of macadamia and avocado, because a farmer, you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. You need to do portfolio management. Have a dairy cow here and that, because there's times of highs and lows. And we are alive to the fact that there are times when we really got very, very, very nice prices. Now, what drives the prices in the world? If we may start from there, because when you look at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, they anchor their prices on the New York stock market, where coffee is traded. What drives those prices? We have very big producers in the world: Brazil and Vietnam. And these people, I'm sorry to say, sometimes when they overproduce, it affects the rest of us, because then they flood the market. Irrespective of our coffee, which I'm going to respond to ask, what is the quality of our coffee? Brazil, they are the largest producer in Arabica, largest producer in Robusta, and they are the largest consumers.
Yes.
And even when you look at the International Coffee Organization, they call the shots. We've got to befriend them if we want our agenda. They call the shots because it depends on your volumes. And they sit in both. They sit as the consumer's side and they sit on the producer side. So they have the stake. So Vietnam as well, they produce a lot. Then when you come to Africa, the giants, you wanted us to compare with the region, the giants are the Ethiopians. And why are the Ethiopians beating us? The Ethiopians, they consume so much coffee, sometimes the government has to force them not to consume a certain amount. Because if given a chance, they'll want to consume everything, because it is in their culture. And remember, they produce so much coffee, close to 10 million bags of clean coffee. But they consume more than 50% of that. And only they do that 50% because the government has put measure, not because they need the foreign. Otherwise, if you have gone to Ethiopia, it's tradition. After every meal, there is a coffee continuously, and that's why and it's even in their culture. Even when they are, going for a show, for instance, before
coffee
they can speak, fast before people, that family and this can break the silence. It's part. It's in their culture. It is in them. Coffee is key. And when you look at the tribes in Ethiopia, we have some of them in Kenya, and when you go to Isili, you'll find them. There is coffee being traded in Sri Lanka. It's because of the same culture, which Kenya, we need to probably capitalize on it. Now, when you come to Uganda, Uganda is a Robusta country. And they have also been growing very much in terms of producing coffee. What am I trying to say? In terms of quality, we are still the leading in quality. However, it is dwindling. Ours is what we call specialty coffee. It's washed coffee. And probably to
elaborate on washed coffee.
What is washed coffee? Is what we do, what they do.
Yes.
When you harvest the coffee, there is the fermentation. It takes longer, 2 to 3 days, fermenting in the tanks, and then you
ferment, wash, grade.
That is what gives the,
Kenyan coffee, that unique taste in the aroma.
Unique taste, the way they process. Also, our soils, the Mount Kenya, the volcanic rose, everything conspires to make our coffee very unique and very tasty. And let me tell you, I was in Brazil, and their coffee mostly, because they are huge. Smallholder coffee in Brazil is a farmer with 65 acres. Now, 65 acres, that is smallholder. You cannot harvest, and there are no people. So they have to use machines. You cannot pick. Kenyan coffee, the washed coffee especially, we pick the only ripe ones. Only ripe ones. And that is what we process. And that's what. So in Brazil, they cannot afford to do it. The farms are so huge. So they do machines. And machines does what? They don't know what is ripe and what is not ripe. So they get everything. And then again, how do you ferment? How many tanks will you need to ferment 300 acres of coffee? So they do what is called naturals. Mbuni. They come and dry them the way they are. They dry with the pulp and the earth, and then now they process.
That's why they need our coffee
now
to blend.
The marketers now will buy Brazilian coffee, for example, 100 bags, and buy 1 bag of Kenya. I'm telling you that coffee has no aroma. You'll be told there's coffee there and you are not. It's terrible.
It's like
so
soil.
they need Kenyan coffee, and that's what the world is doing. Kenyan coffee is sourced for blending to give that taste of coffee. And that is what says about our quality. But again, when I come back to the farmer.
But even, you know, you've mentioned two things here. Yeah. The issue of quality, our quality, specialty coffee is dwindling. That we've not tackled why it is dwindling. What is affecting the quality of our coffee?
Yes, and I was coming to that and say what we need to do before he responds.
But before you get to that, Nairobi Coffee Exchange, it is a thorn in the farmer's flesh. Because you'll find a buyer or a coffee dealer buys coffee at 140, 150, AB. Another buyer outside the coffee exchange buys at 300. So when they tell us consumption has gone down, Brazil has too much, where is this other guy taking, the one with who is buying at 300?
Mr. Nyaga has a problem with the Nairobi coffee exchange.
So, I like one thing.
When it comes to the coffee price.
I like one thing in the Capital Markets Act, rules, 2019 again. It says, and the purpose of that is to get other coffee exchange points.
Commodity exchange.
Commodity exchange points. So that I think we tame the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. Okay. I think it is owned by too few people. They must be speaking in the evening.
Okay, maybe
you are let them speak in the evening. You let Nancy respond to that.
You can correct.
Yeah, no,
but you know,
I'm not correcting. I really
the farmer's mind is, why should somebody buy
at 140?
At 140.
At the Nairobi Security Exchange.
At the Nairobi Security Exchange.
I mean, a coffee
Coffee Exchange.
Yeah.
Then another buyer outside the second window. Out there, 380, 400.
And that is what I was trying to say. The government is alive to the fact that Nairobi Coffee Exchange is not the only point, and that is why they created the second window.
Yes.
And farmers, and that is why is Nairobi Coffee Exchange there? To guide you if it is too low in Nairobi Coffee Exchange and you can get a better price.
You go to Embu Exchange.
Yeah, the farmer, not even Embu Exchange. Why not sell directly if you can get a buyer? And recently, the government has really put in measures of attracting new markets and telling people and to come and buy coffee. Just as recently, we had a delegation from Italy, from Ili Cafe. And Ili Cafe in Italy is the biggest coffee buyer because they have complete chains of coffee in Europe, so many in Italy and of course across Europe and even in the America. And they buy coffee from over 140 countries. And we were saying, why not Kenya? And there was a top level government delegation that went to meet the Italian buyers. You know, Italy, they have a very specific type of coffee, the espresso. Yes. And espresso is made by blending several to have that smooth you know, the smooth taste of espresso. And that is what the government is doing to expand the horizon of direct markets. And we were telling them, because I was fortunate to be part of the delegation, we tell them, look here, come and look at our coffee, come and taste. And they came to Othaya, they went to Meru Union, they went to another society in Meru, a few. And we tell them, taste our coffee and tell us what we need to do for us to be able to supply your markets. That is one. We are farmers, I want to put it very clearly. Farmers, you are free to sell your coffee outside Nairobi Coffee Exchange. And again, number two, even in Nairobi Coffee Exchange, as the new the commodity exchange takes shape, that is going to be expanded. You know, the trade of coffee will be expanded to everybody anywhere in the world. So again, what we are using Nairobi Coffee Exchange for now is price discovery. So that now you, Mr. Nyaga, you can say, I cannot sell, without Nairobi Coffee Exchange, you wouldn't know that direct buyer is buying at a good price or not. So it helps you to leverage and say, at Nairobi Coffee Exchange, it's $200. Yeah, it's $200. So mine, if I get somebody giving me $250 outside, I'll sell. So it's not so bad. It gives us the benchmark. And sometimes we discover very, very, very good prices in Nairobi Coffee Exchange. Another thing I wanted to say, Regina, is in terms of quality.
Yes, you've said that the quality is dwindling.
Yes. We want to know what is affecting, because this farmer, produce a very low quality and they want very high prices. Now to Mechapa, Nairobi Coffee Exchange, they have their own weaknesses and here. But even farmers are not without their weaknesses. If you produce very bad coffee, you don't expect very high price, number one. What is the yield per tree? If we are doing 3 kilos per tree really, and the price that year is bad, you will definitely get nothing out of it. But so suppose the price was bad because it's a worldwide thing. There is overproduction in Brazil and Vietnam and Ethiopia, and they have shifted the prices. If you had done 20 kilos per tree, would it still you make money?
Of course.
Yes, you'll make market. So that is where we are telling farmers, even as we deal with the external issues, we also have to deal with the issues of quality. And what is your percentage of AA and ABs in your production? That is another issue. You find the farmer is only 10% is the prime grades, that is AA and AB.
As a farmer, Nyaga, respond to that. You are producing
Low
low quality, and demanding a high price.
Yeah.
The reasons are just like we have touched on them before. One, the farmer is producing low quality beans or through low quality cherry. One, education. He needs to be educated, he needs to be capacity built, he needs to be constantly reminded that you need compound fertilizer 6 months before flowering. He needs to be told that. And that fertilizer needs to be available also. He needs to be told that once the flower is set, you need a foliar feed to make that flower stick there, develop, and get the beans ready. Further on, you need to be reminded that you need a certain fertilizer, a certain foliar feed, to make the berry robust and develop the proper mucilage levels, sugar levels, proper nutrients. Caffeine content needs to be developed. But it is all out of capacity building, inputs, affordable credit. Give him that, he will produce the right one.
He's put that in
Clearly.
summary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, maybe I need to add one thing. Huh?
Yes.
Then you'll produce good quality.
Yeah.
Good quality.
One thing, the farmer has to change the mindset. You remember what he said? There was a Cap 33 that all the coffee belonged to government. And what that has done to the mind of the farmer, and especially the older generation, no pun intended, is that because it is kahawa ya serikali, they need to give us subsidized fertilizer. They need to come and do for us this. My question to the farmer is, that business person who is opening a kiosk, does it depend on the government to come and train him? No, he will hear there's a training on how to manage business, he'll be there. Or a closer home example, I've been to Embu where there are very many people who do seedlings. I get my fruit seedlings from Embu. And I was asking one muse who has a very good nursery, and I was asking him, how did you learn to do this? He says, no, I just learned when there is a training, I go. I show up, I have learned this through training. I didn't go to any school. When the Calro is training people, I go. What am I trying to say this? Unless we remove that mindset that this coffee belongs to government, so they have to do everything, we will continue saying, oh, the government has not given us subsidized fertilizer, so this year we did not do. It's not the business of government, really, to spoon feed the farmers.
Yes, true.
The government only creates an enabling environment for you to trade in your business. So what do you need to do as a farmer? And not you specifically, because you know you are a real estate farmer, yeah, but there are other farmers who needs to change their mindset and see coffee as a business. Sit down and say, from this half acre, how much do I put and how much do I get out of it? And when you look at it as a business, not something that your father left you, to do, to continue, that will be second. Now, number two, farmers, we do capacity building. There is a lot going on. But what happens? Let me tell you a very interesting thing I've seen over the 6 years I've been in the industry. We call for training, and in that training hall, they are all old men, 45 and above.
60.
Sometimes I'm the only woman. because if I go with my credit manager and somebody else, I'm probably the only woman. And then I get there and I feel intimidated. And I was asking them, okay, fine, we have been training you the last 4 years. How comes it has not translated into better yields, into, increased production? And I realized one thing. These was they come for training, but the actual people working in the farm are the women. So I was asking them the other day, so are you going to call a college in your house so that your mama can sit, I teach you? Because if you don't come, I told them, if you don't come with your women next time, who do the work? Because you have been thrown out to apply fertilizer. But do you go and train your wife? No, you only get fertilizer now.
Nyaga, there's another challenge for you.
I like that one.
Yeah.
The role of women and youth as far as coffee production is concerned.
I like that one. But we need to note that things are also changing. Because for those people who are in coffee farming as a business, you will find 2 signatories on the bank card. She can go for the money, I can go for the money. She will benefit, you benefit. Of course, you will not miss one man there who is more arrogant than not arrogant. So, involvement of women in coffee
and
youth is of paramount importance. And again, I must say, if the farmer produces quality beans, quality cherries, and then he gets good prices, credit will be a non-issue. Credit is not very good. And that's what, as I also train farmers. I also train farmers on coffee. Paid or not paid, because I have a passion for coffee. I'll show you how to prune, and then you pass on my way.
But now the question is, maybe the issue of integration of women and youth in coffee farming also has to come from the issue of how attractive is the coffee industry to a woman or to a young person. I'm saying, if you're going for a meeting or a training program where you see the people who are attending are male, 85%, the age of 45, or actually 60 and above, I mean, there has to be something. So what are you doing as industry players to make the coffee industry attractive for women and youth? Let's start from the farmer point of view.
It will be gradual, and everything in coffee is basically gradual. It is the man who should take the lead. If I get maybe 800,000 shillings, point of entry at the house, to the house, I should say, tell Mama, this is our payout, 800,000 shillings. If I misuse, she will know we are 800,000. In any case, I should not misuse, because they are compelling matters. So I have to take the lead to show the importance of coffee in this family.
Well, that just on a lighter note, not to just downgrade what you said, but there's always this feel that whenever there's a tea payout, whenever there's a coffee payout, the wazis disappear. Actually, they go away until the money is over. That's when they come back.
That is getting out also. But ladies also should say, why should you disappear?
Anyway, if I may respond to that,
so I think,
yes, making the coffee growing, yes,
as a woman who is a farmer.
Yeah.
And one thing, when you look at there's also, I know people know Cheruiyot for tea, but there's also
there's also coffee,
a huge group of coffee growing people there. We have actually a mill, Cheruiyot mill, which brings together over 30 cooperative societies. So there's a lot of coffee in Cheruiyot. And when we came to the industry, I kept, wherever I visited them, I kept sitting with these wazis, and we kept telling them, look here, I'm your daughter, because I come from the region, and you sent me to school for a reason. Now it is my turn to bring back what the school told me. Yeah, I told them, who does, when you are seated here, who is pruning your coffee? It's Mama. Who is weeding? It's Mama. Who is applying fertilizer? It's Mama. So I told them, why don't we agree and say, Mama, your salary, I'll pay you. Of course, Waze will not want to let you see the way even he explained. He will bring 800,000, but he's still under custody. Nobody is touching it. So I told them now, if I am your wife, I'll be motivated if you say, Mama, I got 800,000. Now, for the work you did, here is 100,000. Do whatever you want to do. You did a good job. This time we got 800,000. This is in yako. Kijana, you ulisaidia Mama. Here is your 50,000. Whatever you like. Let me tell you, for instance, for free. Kwanza, mama will always spend again at home. I'll remember, the seat covers are really dilapidated. I'll buy seat covers. I'll even buy, all of it will come home. Maybe not for the youth because they are young, they'll want to buy fashion and all that. But for the woman, it will come back home. Why am I saying this? Unless we need to change that mindset from the men. And when we look at coffee as a business you pay your workers. You don't work for free. Why are youth running away? Because ninafanya kazi kwa shamba ya baba for the whole year. Then when he gets it, I don't see him. Ananiambia na hii chakula unakula na hii nyumba unaishi for free. So what do? I disappear and go to town.
So basically we need to incentivize coffee growing, or rather coffee industry to attract women. And
that is
now, as we come,
should be a continuing debate.
A value chain that everyone earns, every
and they should actually earn. In cash.
In cash. Something tangible so that they can come in.
And that's what we did in Kipkelion. After talking for 3 to 4 years with this they agreed each to give at least 100 trees from their farm to the women with their own payout.
Maybe that's something we need to implement in
and
Embu
maybe
County.
can
it has been tried.
It
was tried in one society, and that coffee was stolen.
Okay, now we're already getting feedback, but as we come to a close, there's someone who is saying that they're watching from Busia and on Twitter, and we really appreciate that you are keeping tabs with what is happening on Good Morning Kenya this morning. We're talking about, bringing back the coffee industry to profitability. Now it is ranked as a 5th commodity in as far as Kenya's export profile is concerned, but way back, 30 years back, it was one of the main export income earners for the country. And you remember Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven economy.